sun is gone.
Future prosperity, Aina, the living earth, and this is a deeply seated Hawaiian value. It's how the Hawaiians saw their land. It also describes their relationship to the land, my cousin. So we'll be talking about that as we go on the tour today. Safety first, guys. Safety first. I got a camera right here. I'll have eyes on you guys at all times. Anybody gets into trouble, needs me for anything, you go like this into the camera. This is the international sign for I need help. All right. So you do this. I will pull the car over immediately. I'll get outside, call the ambulance, whatever it is that you guys need. All right, my cousin, safety first. You are to stay in your seats at all times while the vehicle is traveling down the road, and make sure that those seat belts are on. Like I said earlier, the back of the vehicle is a lot bumpier than the front of the vehicle, my cousins, so be aware of that. I'm going to take it easy on you guys. We're not going to be doing any back-breaking stuff, but we are going to be climbing the volcano on a very steep incline in this beautiful vehicle, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun, my cousin. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. If you're scared, get off. Get out.
No, exciting.
No, you're all right. You're all right. You'll be all right. I'm gonna take care of you guys.
She was scared to get married, but she's fine now.
See, there you go, bro. There you go. So it works out for everybody. So excellent, guys. Welcome to it. You guys ready?
Yes.
All right, Ohana. Let's get him.
I like your name.
Thanks,
Lion
bro.
of God.
I like it too.
Yes, Lion of God. Let's go.
The lion. My mother high-five me right now.
Yeah, Ariel means Lion of God in Hebrew.
You know what everybody else said? The Little Mermaid. I was like, yeah, you ever get beat up by a mermaid? All right, let's go. Two. All right, guys. Everybody wave into the camera if you can hear me. Let me see those hands. Yeah, all right. Excellent, my cousins. Welcome to it, guys. We are off on an amazing journey through this beautiful valley, through this beautiful range. Let's get it. Let's try not to hit anything on our way out.
Watch the truck on the left.
All right. Excellent, guys. Aloha e komamai, aloha ke kakahia kako. That means aloha, welcome, and good morning in the Hawaiian language, guys. Welcome to it. Like I said, we are off on a beautiful journey through this beautiful ranch. The Kuaola Ranch is comprised of 4,000 acres, making up 3 ahu pua'as. Ahu is an altar. A pua'a is a pig. These pig altars were the land divisions in Old Hawaiian. It's how Hawaiians knew when they were going from one district to another. It is always the width of those districts that is marked by the pig altars, as the districts always went from the top of the volcano all the way down into the ocean. And if you haven't seen the volcano yet, guys, take a look directly in front of the vehicle, soon to be off to the right. This is the volcano here. This part is called the Kuaola Range, but it is part of the Kuaola volcano. Excuse me. If you guys take a look in front of us and off to our left, there you'll see the rest of the volcano, my cousins. That is the Kuaola, all of those mountains over there. And usually the next question is, well, which one's the volcano? Well, all of them are the volcano. This volcano is 37 miles long, my cousins. Comprises the entire back spine of the island. She is 3.5 million years old, and the second of Oahu's 2 volcanoes. The second one because she came out of the ocean much sooner than the first of our volcanoes did. It is called Waianae. We're not going to talk too much about Waianae today because that's the mountain range that you see on the other side of the island. But be sure, my cousins, that is it. Those are the only 2 volcanoes on this island. I assure you that. Very important to know what is and what isn't a volcano here in the Hawaiian Islands. Now, there were 2 classes in Old Hawaii, or I'm sorry, 4 classes in Old Hawaiian society. The classes that the people divided themselves into. The first was the kawao, and the kawao was the lower class. It was the outcasts, it was the criminals, the people who didn't follow the sacred laws known as kapus. The second class was the maka'ainana. The maka'ainana were the fishermen, the lava'iai, and it was also the farmers, my cousins. They were basically the working class of Old Hawaii. The third class was the kahunas. Now, you may have heard of the kahunas, and you know that they are referred to as medicine men, as priests, and yes, they were this, but the kahunas were also experts in their particular field of study. Their their particular field of knowledge. So it wasn't limited to just the sacred stuff, the medicinal stuff. There was a kahuna of surfing. There was a kahuna of fishing nets. There was a kahuna of when the fish would come. There was a kahuna of when the bananas would be ready. All those kinds of things, guys. So the last class, and they say the class that is closest to the gods, was the Ali'i class. And the Ali'i were the chiefs of old Hawaii. And all of these classes, they were said to be descended directly from the Akua, the Ali'i were, and so their relationship was closest to the Akua. And if you want to know about the Akua, you can look over here to our right. These are ki'is, my cousins, ki'is of the Hawaiian gods. Now, there are no such thing as tikis in Hawaii, guys. There was no tiki bars, no tiki huts, no tiki statues. No, that's called cultural appropriation, and that's a completely different tour. In Hawaiian, it is ki'i. The tradition has always been. So these ki'is, the very first one closest to you guys there, that is Kanaloa. Kanaloa, the Hawaiian god of the ocean. Then we have next to him his brother with the mohawk, that is Lono. Lono is the Hawaiian god of agriculture, the Hawaiian god of the land, the Hawaiian god of peace and agricultural fertility. We'll be talking about him today as we are in an agricultural area. The third one in is Kane. Kane is the Hawaiian god of fresh water, the Hawaiian god of the clouds, the Hawaiian god of the rain. We also have the very first one here, the executor. His name is Lono. That's Ku, my cousins. Ku is the Hawaiian god of war, but he was also a very important god because he's the god to make sure that all the other gods are doing what the other gods are supposed to be doing. Now understand that these are the four main gods in Hawaiian culture, but under each one of these gods was another 10,000 lesser gods. And now this would have taken a lot on Sundays at the church, right? Well, they didn't pray to all 40,000 gods at the same time. They would pray to the gods specifically for what their purpose was and for what their intent was. So if you were going out and you knew that the day was full of farm work and you're going to be going out into the kaloloi, or loikalo, excuse me, then you have to pray to Lono, but you would also pray to the god of the kalo. You would also pray to the god of the water. You could pray to Kane as well. It was very specific to the situation. Now right here to our left, for our cousins on the left, we have a beautiful view out over Kaneohe Bay, and you can see Mokolii Island just offshore right there, my cousins. We'll be talking a lot about Kaneohe Bay today. I have some interesting facts for you about that beautiful body of water that sits next to us. And my cousins on the right side, don't get jealous. You guys are going to get one on the right side, just a little bit higher in elevation as we go up around the switchback, my cousins. Let's get looks like we're rubbing up on a Kuaola traffic jam here. We have our beautiful pipi. Pipi is the Hawaiian word for beef or cow. And believe it or not, cows have best friends. You always see the same two cows together. They're best friends. They link up, they talk stories, they chew cud, they hang out with each other. This is Karen and Becky right here next to us, little love.
Hi, Karen and Becky.
They're always together, causing trouble. Asking to talk to the manager. Over here to our right side, guys, we have a view for our cousins on the right side of the vehicle. Again, Kaneohe Bay, Mokolii Island closest to us. And then out on the horizon, you can see Mokapu, otherwise known as the sacred honu, the sacred turtle. We're going to talk a lot about some interesting facts about why that peninsula out there actually looks like a turtle. And I'll be the first to tell you, my cousins, Hawaiians don't tell these stories for no reason. We're going to explain to you guys what that's all about here in just a little bit. All right, Ohana. We're making our way to our first stop, the Wahipana. The Wahipana is a place of celebration, a place of seeking knowledge, a sacred place in old Hawaii. This is a replica, but we put it here for our educational purposes. We can teach you guys about the land. We can teach you guys about the rituals of the old Hawaiians. I want to talk a little bit about that here. This is going to be our first stop. You guys can leave whatever you like in your seats, guys, but bring a camera with you because there's lots of beautiful things to see out there. Also, our first movie site. Let's go talk about it.
Welcome to it, my cousins. My name is Ariel. I am on Jeep number 9, guys. Welcome to it. I want to talk to you guys about the Wahipana. It is a place of celebration, a place where you come to seek wisdom from the land, when you seek knowledge from the gods. This is the kind of place that you would go to, guys. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the rock wall right there, guys, and this is also very important for your safety as well. The rock is done in the traditional Hawaiian style of the uhau humu pohaku. my cousins. Uha humu pohaku. If you can say that at the end of the tour, I'll buy you a Mai Tai. So the uha humu pohaku, guys, it just means rocks that are interlocked. If you look at the rocks themselves, you can notice that there's no concrete, there's no binding, there's no chewing gum sticking them together, my cousins. It was built in the old Hawaiian way. The only thing holding it together is the rocks interlocking and gravity itself. So we ask that as we enter, guys, you do not step on the wall, do not walk on the wall, do not sit on the wall, no butts, no elbows, no nothing like that. If one of those rocks comes off, the entire thing can go tumbling down the hill. Also for your safety, the other side of it, there's a 20-foot drop down. It can be very, very dangerous, my cousins, all right? So that's the very first thing. But again, built in the traditional Hawaiian style. Now, you would enter these places, you had to be of a certain rank in your village to be able to enter here. You either had to be a kahuna, which were the medicine men and the priests, or you have to be an ali'i, my cousins, one of the chiefs of old Hawaii. The ali'i were said to be direct descendants of the akua, the Hawaiian gods, my cousins. So, there were protocols that you had to go through before you actually entered the Vahipana, my cousins, and there was 3 protocols that you could do. There was the hu'ivai, or hi'uvai, excuse me. The hi'uvai, my favorite one, is a cleansing ritual. You have to go down to the ocean, strip off all your clothes, get into the water, and make sure you cleanse yourself both inside and outside, spiritually and physically, and then you walk your naked butt right back up to the Vahipana, and then you would be let in, guys. That's the one we're doing today, so everybody follow me.
Oh, let's go this way.
That'll be the 7 p.m. tour. Okay, guys, the second ritual was the olikahea. The olikahea was a chant. You would enter the gates there, and you would do a chant asking the gods for permission, asking for their knowledge, asking them to listen to your prayers, my cousins. That's the olikahea. And the third one that we have is the ho'okupu. The ho'okupu is an offering. And if you guys take a look over there next to the pu'olu'olu, that is kukui nut leis right there. You would make an offering of something that grows in nature. Here you would make an offering to the land, not to the gods, because you want the land to give you. This is an agricultural area, so we kind of stay within that context. Now about the Vahipana itself, right here in this house, this is the hale kiai. Guys, you guys know what hale means? What does hale mean? House or dwelling. Very good, guys. A hale is a house or a dwelling, my cousins. The wood that they would make them out of, Hollywood. Yeah, that's all right. They get worse. They get worse. So this is the hale kiai, guys. The kiai was the protector. It was usually the bravest and smartest, most physically able warrior in the village that would sleep right in there, and he made sure that nobody entered this without doing the proper rituals. If you tried to get past the kapu sticks there without doing the proper rituals, the kiai had the right to execute you on the spot, my cousins. There was no innocent before proven guilty in old Hawaii. There wasn't this, there wasn't that. It would either was or it wasn't, my cousins, and usually that wasn't would cost you your life. The kiai would be the protector of the sacredness of the Vahipana. Now the ki'i that we see there, my cousins, and very important to know that there was no such thing as tiki in old Hawaii. That was something that was made up later to sell you guys brochures and tickets to Hawaii, my cousins. Tiki is the Tahitian tradition. Here in Hawaii, it is ki'i, my cousins. And there were no tiki bars, no tiki huts, none of that stuff. That's cultural appropriation, but that's a different tour. I said that on my bus already, so you know, we got to recycle the jokes, cousins. All right, guys, so here we have a ki'i of Lono. We figured it would be most fitting to have Lono here because he is the Hawaiian god of what? Fertility. Thank you, my cousin, the one person who was paying attention on the tour today. Fertility, the land, the agricultural fertility. He is the boss of all that stuff. So that's Lono. That's why his ki'i is there, guys. If you look past it, you'll see another little hale over there. That's the hale pahu. The pahu were the sacred drums, my cousins. And these drums, because Kuaola was such an important place, you can imagine this like the Washington, D.C. of Oahu. This is where everything was happening back in the days of old Hawaii. This was basically the main ahupua'a, yeah. So the pahus, the sacred drums inside there, were to signal the birth of a god, or the birth of a chief, or the death of a chief, my cousins. And this is how they would get the entire island onto the same page. Back in those days, there was no Instagram, no Snapchat, no Facebook, none of that stuff. So what they would do is then when there was the birth or death of a chief, they would bring the appropriate drum out. Then the drummer would start playing a certain beat at a certain cadence. The next ahupua'a would hear it, and they would bring out their their drum, the appropriate drum, because they sounded different, and then they would start on the same beat, on the same cadence, then the next ahupua'a and the next ahupua'a, till it went all the way around the island. So here, you'd be playing the drums, you'd listen for it to start over here, but you'd listen for it to end over here, my cousins. That's the way it works, and it would go all the way around. It usually took between 16 and 20 hours to have the entire island on the same page, but in the days of old Hawaii, this was a brilliant method of communication, my cousins, brilliant method. So, as we move on forward to the end of the Vahipana there, we see the Aunu'u, my cousins. The Aunu'u is the tower that you see sticking up. Now that tower was meant to receive, to be given the prayers to, and that tower sends the prayers up to the Akua. And there were 3 levels, my cousins. If you were a kahuna, you would pray on the first level. If you were a kahuna in training, excuse me, because you're still furthest away in your relationship from the gods, so you would pray, send those prayers to the first level. The regular kahunas, the guys who were already established and experts in their field, they would pray on the second tier, and then on the top tier, that was reserved for the ali'i. Again, they were believed to be direct descendants of the Akua, and so their relationship was closest to the gods. That's why they would have the top. Now in old Hawaii, we left it open for you guys for educational purposes, but in old Hawaii, the traditional Aunu'us, they are wrapped in a kapa cloth. So it makes it like a funnel, my cousins. A beautiful white cloth around made from the mulberry tree, and it was said to, when you pray inside of it, it holds those prayers, magnifies those prayers, and then boom, shoots them up. You can imagine it like a Hawaiian prayer megaphone kind, yeah? That's what it would be, my cousins. Now the little structure that's right in front of it, the one in the triangles, that is called a lele. Lele in Hawaiian means to fly or to jump, my cousins. This one was built specifically for the purposes of sending our prayers and sending our mana, our spiritual power and spiritual energy, to our kupuna who are facing the struggle right now on Mauna Kea. How many of you guys know what's going on on Mauna Kea right now? Volcano. That it is a volcano, yes. But there's other stuff going on. That's okay, guys. That's okay. You guys can come see us later, and we'll be more than happy to tell you about it. So the kupuna are there. It's about the 30-meter telescope. It's a sacred mountain for the Hawaiians. The kupuna, the elders, the one who give us our teachings, who give us our mana, they are there fighting the struggle to make sure that the mountain stays sacred, make sure that nobody defiles the sacredness of that mountain. So for those of us who have to work every day, especially Hawaii being so expensive, we can't get to the Big Island. So we send them our prayers, we send them our love, we send them our mana from the lele, my cousins. That's why it was built there. It's to to represent our lahui and keep everything onipa'a, standing strong, standing together, guys. So we're gonna do, which one of the rituals are we doing today? Olikahea. Okay, Napua is going to lead us in an olikahea, guys, and then she's going to say the magic words e komomai, which means welcome, and that'll give us all permission to enter the Vahipana, cousins. Let's get them.
Oh nai nai, ho mai, ho mai, ho mai, ho mai ke mai luna mai, oh na me ahuna no ya, oh nai nai, ho mai, ho mai, ho mai, ho mai ke mai luna mai, oh na me ahuna no ya. Oh nai nai, oh my, oh my, oh my, hey, come on, my cousins. Welcome to Payment Mahalo.
Hey, come on, my guys, come on in.
And if you guys have seen Jumanji 3, you are also standing in the snake pit, my cousins. This is where Ruby Roundhouse, she came in through the backside and she saw the snakes here. And she's like, wait, Venom's my weakness. But then she steps in anyway, sacrificing one of her lives.
Let's go to the combo. So the idea of the comes to the Hawaiians from them knowing how these islands are very literally alive. Guys, there are 8 main islands in the state of Hawaii, but Hawaii is not just those 8 islands. Hawaii is a collection of 132 islands, corals, atolls, reefs, tips of volcanoes sticking up out of the water. And they actually begin 162 miles to our southeast, where the big island is today, Hawaii. And that is where all of those islands are born. And then they go stretching 2,800 miles across the face of the Pacific, ending at the Curie Atoll. The Curie Atoll today sits just 1,100 miles south of the southernmost coast of Japan. At 67 to 55 million years ago, right around the time of the last dinosaur extinction, the Curie Atoll comes up out of the water where the big island of Hawaii is today, my cousins. Very, very important. Oh, somebody going off-roading over there. We gotta go? Okay. So guys, this is a life cycle. The Hawaiian Islands are also the fastest moving island chain on the planet, moving towards the northwest at the rate of 3 inches per year. Geological fact, this year we are 3 inches further away from the coast of the North American continent, Canada and the United States. And we are 3 inches closer to Asia, Japan, Korea, you know, Australia, New Zealand, all those places, guys. These islands are in fact moving, and again, that's a life cycle. The islands are born. They spend their lives living, moving across the face of the planet, eventually sinking back down into the ocean, dying someplace completely different from where they started. And the Hawaiians knew this, guys. Why? Because they were expert wayfinders, guys. Wayfinders and navigation experts, guys. They could have gone completely around this planet. Even 1,500 years ago, they could have gone completely around this planet just by sitting in their ocean-going canoes, looking up at the stars and feeling the currents and swells underneath. And speaking of those wayfarers, a very famous wayfarer named Hakai, he is credited with planting the very first ulu tree right here at Hakipu'u, Yahupua'a, that we are about to enter. He was very storied. He say one of the first waves of the Hawaiian migration back in the days. He piloted one of those first waves, and they say he was the one who brought the ulu tree, ulu is the breadfruit, and planted it right here at Hakipu'u in the process. And I want to show you guys the Yahupua'a, so you know when we're going from one district to another. And that's coming up here in just a second. Right now we are in the Kuaola Ahupua'a. And Kualoa means long back, my cousins. Long back. Kua is your back. Loa is long. This refers to the long back of a great mo'o. The mo'os were giant lizards, entrusted with being the spirit protectors of the land. And I'll tell you guys that whole story on our way out. I'm also going to tell you guys the story about the color and the significance and importance of that plant to the Hawaiians. But right here to our left right now, this is the Ahupua'a. This is the pig altar, my cousins. In the days of old Hawaii, it would have been an actual pig head, because this was an offering to the Hawaiian god of agriculture. Again, his name is Lono. It was also a kinolau of Lono. Kinolau means bodily form in the Hawaiian language. And the gods would take many bodily forms. One of Lono's was the kukui nut. We'll be talking about kukuis in just a little bit. But one of his other forms was the pua'a, the pig, guys. So right now the front of the vehicle is about to enter Hakipu'u, which means the broken hills. And the back of the bus is in Kualoa, my cousins. Let's get everybody in the same Ahupua'a. Let's get them. Nice beautiful ride through our range. Keep your eyes peeled. There's a Hawaiian Pokemon over there, the mongoose. Not native to the Hawaiian Islands. Because of the isolation of the Hawaiian Islands, there aren't very many things that were native, guys. And this jungle that we speak of here is not exactly a jungle, because there's no monkeys back here swinging from the trees. There's no sloths. There's no snakes. There's no big reptiles. No possums, raccoons, lions, tigers, bears. Oh my. None of that stuff, guys. There's actually birds and a bat, the only thing that the Hawaiians found here. And that's again because of the isolation of the Hawaiian Islands, because we are the most isolated habitable landmass on the planet. Not a lot of it was evolving here, and the things that did evolve here were singularly unique, and they evolved without outside sources, and there was no natural defenses for anything else. So this is, to this day, what makes Hawaii the bird extinction capital of the world and the endangered species capital of the world, guys. No natural defenses, no big predators. The big predator out here in the Hawaiian wilderness is actually the wild pig. They're vegetarians for the most part. Next after them, the chickens. But the chickens will eat anything. Be careful. The mongoose introduced. So was the chicken and the pig. The Polynesian rat was also introduced, although not on purpose. Lots of things. But through this isolation, guys, we see where the Hawaiians got their first ideas of aloha and their ideas of malama'aina. These are the ideas that allowed the Hawaiians to survive out here so isolated from everything else for 1,500 years before contact. And we say before contact. I'm talking about Captain Cook, guys. Captain Cook did not discover anything. Captain Cook was a dummy. He was lost. He shows up on the beach by accident. He's like, oh, Hawaiians, I'm lost. Hawaiians like, bro, go that way. Because Hawaiians knew exactly where they were. So they're like, bro, go that way. He goes that way, but he's a dummy and he gets lost again. Comes back a few months later. He's like, Hawaiians, I got lost again. Hawaiians lost their patience. They killed him. And no, Hawaiians did not eat Captain Cook. Cannibalism is something that was forbidden in the old Kapu's, guys. A lot of you guys may have heard that the Hawaiians sat down and ate Captain Cook. No, that is false, my cousins. If the Hawaiians had eaten Captain Cook, history would have remembered him as Captain Crunch. So this isolation, guys, the birds, they came here 500,000 years ago, and there were only 16 different species of finches. Those 16 different species evolved into the 367 different species that were once the native Hawaiian honey creepers. The Hawaiian hoary bat comes 200,000 years ago, much more recently than the birds. But the birds, being here for 500,000 years, so isolated, they started to grow curves in their beaks to match the belled curves of the flowers that they were feeding from. This allowed the birds to get deeper into the flower and be able to feed themselves better. This presented a problem for the flowers, because now the birds are sticking their faces where the flowers are trying to reproduce. That's called the stamen, and that's the little stick that sticks out of the center of the flower that has the pollen on it. That's the flower's reproductive organ. It's how flowers make more flowers. So, the flowers then evolved, because it was all singularly unique. The flowers then evolved to have their stamens outside of the opening of the flower and over the front. So this way, when the bird dips its beak into the bird's the flower, into the curved bell of the flower now deposits pollen on that bird's forehead, and the bird becomes the pollinator for the flower, helps it to reproduce, but also the flower helps the bird by feeding that bird, my cousins. In this relationship, we see mutual obligation and mutual responsibility. You can't have the birds without the flowers, because the birds help to eat from the flower, or the birds eat from the flowers. And you can't have the flowers without the birds, because the birds are helping the flowers to procreate. Mutual obligation, mutual responsibility. This relationship, my cousins, is what aloha is. It's also what malama aina is to the Hawaiians. Very important. Now we're coming up on our next movie site, guys. Get your cameras out and get ready for this. Welcome to Jurassic World. This is the Indominus Rex paddock. A bunch of scientists got together and they're like, oh, let's make a dinosaur that'll kill absolutely everything it comes across. And they took all the best pieces of all the other reptiles and amphibians and they put it together in the Indominus Rex. She had the jaws of an alligator. She had camouflage like a chameleon. She could jump real high like a frog. And very, very intelligent. Jurassic World, starring Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. The structure looks imposing, but it's actually not as imposing as it looks, my cousins. The steel beams, all the steel, all the metal, that's actual metal. But what looks like concrete to us from here, you guys are going to see in a second, it's nothing but styrofoam. It's actually polystyrene. It's a construction grade type of styrofoam, but it's very dense, but still very, very light. Also a lot of particle board and plywood used to build it. You can see in the picture there, Chris Pratt standing by those claw marks. The Indominus Rex was so smart that she made the humans think that she got out. So the humans are like, oh, we'll be safe if we lock ourselves in. So they closed the gates to the paddock. They locked themselves in. Little do they know, the Indominus Rex was locked right inside with them. She eats a bunch of people. Then Bryce Dallas Howard comes in and she's like, oh, I'm beautiful, but dinosaurs, and I love you, drama, drama, drama. And then Chris Pratt was like, well, I'm handsome, but motorcycles, and I love you, but dinosaurs, drama, drama, drama. That's an accurate retelling of the entire movie. But you can see the steel beams here. And look closely at what looks like the concrete is styrofoam. Like giant Hollywood Lego blocks. And if you look to our left here, you can see the claw marks made by the Indominus Rex. Now you know how she was able to claw them, because it's just styrofoam. Of course, the grass was mowed when they were here filming, and Hollywood did come in and plant all these trees. You can see the observation deck up there. That's where the scene actually took place. If the grass moves weird, let me know. We gotta get out of here.
Oh my God. So this one is the
And right here next to us is a cage from the first Jurassic Park. This is actually the cage from the Dilophosaurs. The Dilophosaurs were the spitting lizards. The ones that killed the bad guy in the first one. This was their cage. We never did find those guys. All that oxygen in your lungs. Feel that beautiful smell from all of these green plants and all that oxygen that's back here in the valley. It's very, very good for you. So understand also the opposite side of the coin about the Hawaiians, about the Hawaiian Islands not having any natural defenses for anything. 93% of all of the animals that you see outside of the water are not native or introduced to the Hawaiian Islands. 80% of all the plants that you see around us are not native or introduced to the Hawaiian Islands. And we will see some native plants as we get up towards the top of the mountain, because that's where most of the native plants actually are. As the non-native plants, the invasive plants come in, they outcompete the native plants for resources, for water, for soil, for sunlight. So they push the native plants higher and higher up into the mountains until eventually a lot of them do go extinct, guys. And here we have our first stream crossing. You guys won't get wet, it's not that deep. It's just enough to make sure we keep the underside of the vehicles clean. Now we see the helicopter from King Kong Skull Island to our left. Samuel L. Jackson spends the entire movie looking for this helicopter. He should have just called me. I would have told him. The explosives that were in there were very important to him because they needed to blow up T-Rex. But remember, Hollywood uses whatever they can to build stuff. Only the front of the helicopter is an actual helicopter. The rest of it is all made through that Hollywood movie magic, polystyrene, chicken wire, plaster of Paris, all kinds of different materials they use. They use anything they can get their hands on. You see that little metal dome up on top of the rotor blades up there, my cousins? That's actually a cooking wok they got from Target, $12.99. That is King Kong Skull Island, starring John Goodman, John C. Reilly, Samuel L. Jackson, Loki, and Captain Marvel. And our next movie set is actually right here around the corner. The movie Tears of the Sun, starring Bruce Willis. He plays a commando that goes off to save a Nigerian village from the rebels that were trying to overrun. Part of that Nigerian village was built right here to our right. Another stream crossing here, guys. And over here to our right, just on the flat spot over there where the hill starts to rise, that's where the tower, the water tower was in the movie Triple Frontier, starring Ben Affleck and Charlie Hunnam. It was a Netflix original. If you haven't seen it, okay, you haven't missed much. But if you got nothing to watch because you're done watching all your shows, definitely give it a shot. And again, in Triple Frontier, up here in front of us, we have the entrance to the drug lord's compound. They made it very, very foggy. Fog machines all over the place to make it look like it was raining. But this is where they enter the compound. Ben Affleck and Charlie Hunnam play a part of a team of mercenaries that they run out of money because the government's not paying them enough. So they decide they're going to go rip off a big-time drug dealer. Hilarity ensues. As you can see, the bricks, those aren't actual bricks. That's, again, polystyrene just carved up to make it look like bricks. The gate looks all metal and stuff, but only the center is metal, as the frame is actually wood. The hinges are metal as well. The barbed wire is real, so is the wood. But the glass is actually not. That's just classic. All right, Ohio. It's gonna get a little bumpy. You guys will be happy to know I haven't had to use the four-wheel drive. And the Hawaiians, in order to practice their ideas of sustainability, in order to feed themselves, in order to keep the system working. Because remember also, as part of the idea of the living earth, the Hawaiians were part of this land, not set apart from it. And the land never belonged to the Hawaiians. It was the Hawaiians who knew in everything they did that it was they who belonged to the land. So through this idea comes their ideas of how to make their crops and how to grow their crops. Wakea, the sky father, a long time ago when Papa, the earth mother. Wakea, the sky father, and Papa, the earth mother. Yeah. They have a child. This child is called Ho'ohoku Kalani, the star that fell from heaven. Now Ho'ohoku Kalani, she has a child of her own, but unfortunately that child is born, stillborn. The baby is dead. But she names that child Haloa, and she buries him in the ground. In their grief, the family cries tears over the child. And the tear gets into the ground and nourishes the child like the water nourishes the seeds. And from the child outgrows a long stem and a broad waxy green leaf. A few years later, Ho'ohoku Kalani, she has another child. And this child is born happy, born healthy, bouncing baby. And she decides she's going to name this child in honor of the older brother, Haloa. But now they have this bouncing baby. And they have to figure out, where are we going to feed this baby? Well, they remember that there's a plant that grows where the older brother was buried. They go to where the older brother is buried. And they take the older brother from the ground as the kalo plant. They feed a piece from the older brother to the younger brother. And when the younger brother eats upon it, he is nourished. He becomes a human being. That is the Hawaiian creation story of how we humans were created, my cousins. And understand that the Hawaiians were not out here eating their babies, guys. There was no cannibalism in old Hawaii. This is a metaphor for the relationship of the older brother to the younger brother. The older brother is the aina. The older brother is the kalo plant. It nourishes us. It gives us lessons. It allows us and affords us our living. As the younger brother, we have to steward the land. We have to malama aina, to take care of the land, take care of the older brother, so he can keep giving us the nourishment that we need, guys. That is the Hawaiian creation story, and all about the kalo plant here. This is a stream that is fed by a cold spring, my cousins. One of the few cold springs that are left on the island. One of the few that we have on property. I believe there's only 2 of them here on property. But we're trying to model it in the old Hawaiian way, and we're trying to make sure that everything we do here at Kuaola Ranch remains with those ideas of malama aina and sustainability, guys. And this is a big part of it. You saw the terraces. Back here we grow sugar cane. We grow plenty of kalo. That's the big heart-shaped leaf that you see there, sitting close to the ground, my cousins. Now we're getting ready to climb the volcano, guys. So no more talking from here. I gotta concentrate on driving. Let's get 'em. All right. How's everybody doing? Good. Yeah, you guys feeling good back there? Having a good ride? Yeah. Excellent, my cousins. Excellent, guys. So we're looking out over beautiful Kaneohe Bay
Right here, we can see Mokali'i Island. I told you guys the Kuaola Ridge, the long back. Mokali'i Island is actually the tail of that lizard. You can see the turtle out there. And I told you guys that these islands are moving across the face of the planet, right? And the Hawaiians knew this. Well, according to the Hawaiians, that's the turtle that is pulling these islands in the direction that they are moving. Understand that if you go out there and stand on the head of that turtle and take a compass out of your pocket and point it towards the ocean in the direction the turtle is facing, that turtle is facing the same direction the islands are moving. The Hawaiians knew this, my cousins. They could look at the stars and look at one another and be like, oh, Kalani, weren't we over there 3 inches last year? That's how it works, guys. That's how it works. They knew exactly where they were on the planet, guys. Kaneohe Bay, about 25,000 acres, guys, and it is the most well-sheltered bay on the island. It has the only barrier reef that we have on the island. Most of the reefs in Hawaii are fringing reefs. It's a completely different type of ecosystem for a completely different purpose in the environment, right? But because we have the barrier reef out there, you can see that there's waves out there. It's kind of terry cloth, kind of bumpy, but then you get in the bay and look how flat it is and almost glassy out there, my cousins. This makes it, believe it or not, the ideal place for the breeding of our local hammerhead shark population. Every year, about 10,000 scallop hammerhead sharks are born right in that bay, and it has a thriving population of some 35,000 of 3 different species of hammerhead sharks. They make awesome snorkeling partners, my cousins. They are great, beautiful, beautiful creatures, guys, and it's all about respect. It's not Jaws out there. They're not mindless killers. They're not man-eaters. They're not trying to get revenge because we killed their mom in the last movie. No, that's not how it works, my cousins. It is always your fault. Why? Because we've all seen the movie Jaws. And we tend to believe whatever it is that Hollywood tells us, right? Tiki bars. The Hawaiians throw people into the volcanoes. No, look at the volcano. They don't even look like you think they do. Wrong kind of volcano, my cousins. Hollywood's been doing that out here for years. Understand that when you go into the water and you see a shark, what do? You start to panic. Your heart rate goes up. You start splashing around trying to get away from that shark. Oh, wait a second. But the fish is a prey animal for the shark. What happens when the fish sees the shark? Oh, the fish sees, oh, I'm about to get eaten. Oh, the heart rate goes up. Oh, the fish starts splashing around. My cousins, that's no. Don't act like a fish. You won't get bit by a shark. They don't want to eat you. They don't want nothing to do with you. They don't. Trust me. I go snorkeling with hammerheads all the time. It's awesome. One of my favorite things. One of my favorite things. They never come too close to you either. They know that you're there. They know that you're there. They can't see you. They can feel you, my cousins. You guys know that little thing at the hospital goes boop, 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 like that when they hook your heart up to it? Sharks have that in their noses. They can sense the electrical impulse that is given. It's called electrostatic reception. Every time your heart beats, it throws off an electrical impulse. The little pits and pores underneath the shark's noses, they detect that electrical impulse that's given. That's how they find the fish, because they don't see well, and especially not in the dark, and they don't hear anything. They smell, they sense your heartbeat, they sense that electrical impulse, and then their last sense is taste. Also notice that when a shark bites a person, it only bites once and then leaves. Why? Because you taste like McDonald's and it tastes like crap to them. That's why they realize that you are not a food source for them and they go away. That's why you only get bit once. But you know, for us humans, that one bite is kind of fatal, yeah. So it depends. It depends where the bite is. So my cousins, very important. You guys have any questions for me? Now everybody feeling good? Everybody learning a lot? Feeling like you're getting in touch with this place a little bit more? I love it, my cousins. That's what we aim to do. Malama Aina. Let's get them. We're climbing. We're going to climb about another 200 feet. We're going to go up to the saddle. And we'll talk about that when we get up there, guys. Beautiful viewpoint as well. Let's get them.
Now as we get towards the top of the mountain, we're going to start seeing some of the native species, guys. And also the species of canoe plants, actually. Several of species of canoe plants that the Hawaiians actually brought here with them. But these were plants that once the Hawaiians planted them, they needed no further interference because they took to the land, they took to the ground, and they actually grew very well without being invasive, believe it or not. This was two of those were the kukui nut, which I'll show you guys in a second. And there's also the hala. Check it out, this tree over here up to our right above us. You can see what looks like pineapples hanging up there, right? That's not pineapples, guys. Pineapples don't grow from trees. That is hala. Hala is a canoe plant, but it grows very well out here without completely taking over. If you guys take a look at the ones with the red trunks, that's strawberry guava. The strawberry guava, not only is it delicious, but it's also highly invasive. You can see how it's absolutely taking over absolutely everything. But then you look to the left side of the vehicle and you see native plants. That's the ferns, is what I'm talking about, guys. The ferns, we have the lace fern, palai. And we also have the poku poku, which is the one with the straighter ones. The lacy ones, you'll see it because they look lacy. And then the ones with the straight ones, those are native ferns. And most of the native trees in Hawaii, before Hawaiians, were actually tree ferns. But now this is our endangered species restoration area, and we see the lolu, is the fan palm that you see right here, and that's a native fan palm, native to the Hawaiian Islands. You can see some red-whiskered bulbuls out there, those little birds. Indigenous to Hawaii, not endemic though, they're not the Hawaiian honey creepers. We also have the Cyanea truncata that grows over here, my cousins. And the Cyanea truncata is a species of bellflower, and you can tell there's no flowers out right now, but it's the one, if you look at that post over there to the left, those long, broad, waxy green leaves, that's the Cyanea truncata. And our stewardship department is coming up here. They are the hardest working department on this range, because they come out here and they see an invasive tree, they take out that invasive tree, and they make sure they replant some of the native Hawaiian plants. And they grow very well up here at the top of the mountain. We have some kukui nuts. Those are the ones, if you look up and you see the ones that look like the leaves are turned upwards, those are the kukui nut. Kukui nut, very important. We'll talk about that in just a second. Actually, we'll talk about that on the way down. We're going to see many more kukui nut trees. Right here next to us, or in front of us, excuse me, to the right, that little guy right here, this is a kukui nut tree. Notice how they're starting to flower. The kukui nut season is going to be starting here in just another month. Very good for you, that nut too. We'll talk all about it. Well, I'll reserve that for our ride back down to the visitors. Lots of strawberry guys. Lots of Christmas berry up here. Christmas berry is also highly invasive. Some beautiful birds can be seen up here as well. You can see two of the endemic species, two of the honey creepers, the only two honey creepers that you can still see on this island. And that is the apapani and the paia. Well, we see some non-native birds, the red-billed leothrids, which is absolutely beautiful. We saw several of them yesterday. They like to stay low on the ground towards the foot of the strawberry blocks. One last push here to the saddle, guys. Gonna get bumping. All right. Well, you thought I was going to hit it, didn't you?
David, where are you right now?
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park? You're in the volcano, right?
Yeah.
You're hiking at the edge of the volcano, the higher mountain that we see downstairs.
I'm lately going to countries where volcanoes are.
What?
I'm visiting countries where volcanoes are.
Oh yeah.
Philippines, Hawaii,
Nice. Mexico.
Mexico.
Welcome back, guys. Gonna head down 7 here, just a moment. Okay. All right, guys. front of us, you're going to see a pond that's kind of locked away. It's kind of in between the bushes and the mountain there, right in front of us. That is our Mardupi fish pond and garden, guys. That is an 800-year-old, 125-acre fish pond. That fish pond down there, it's right off to our left. You guys can see the water a little bit where the boat's like in between the trees and the bay. There's a little bit of water there, and you get another view of it in just a little bit. But that's where our oyster farm is. We grow our own oysters here at Kuaola Ranch, and they are available at Mahalo Cafe. That's the restaurant in the visitor center. Very delicious, very good for you. My wife loves those oysters. She does. Crazy about it. So that fish pond is 800 years old, 125 acres. It's the size of the Ala Park Mall down there at Oahu. It's huge. But this is not just a fish pond. It is a brilliantly engineered ecosystem by the Hawaiians to make sure that they always have fresh fish for the elite and for the village itself. Because the elite couldn't eat all this fish, and all the resources would be shared amongst the people. The first and biggest fish would go back to the gods. The second biggest fish would go to the ocean, so he could make more fish. And then the third biggest fish would go to the elite, to the chief. Everybody else would share in the catch. It is the longest running fish pond in the Hawaiian Islands as well, because it has been intact and in use for 800 years since it was built. Pretty amazing. The oysters have helped with our idea of malama aina, because the oysters actually filter the water down there. So they're making the water that much cleaner. We've seen, since we've had the oyster farm down there, that several of the invasive species are no longer invasive down there, mainly the mangrove jellyfish. And we've also noticed that our fish actually started tasting better. And the oysters get better every single year. They are delicious. Now, as far as the kukui nut goes, guys, kukui means to enlighten in the Hawaiian language. It also means candle. It also means to bring light to the darkness. Hawaiian's a very contextual language. But the kukui nut had many, many uses. Not only is it edible when seasonal, and you want to use it sparingly when it's edible, because it also has a very powerful laxative in it. You don't want to eat too much. But it has all kinds of medicinal properties. If you have inflammation due to arthritis or rheumatism in your knuckles and your wrists and your joints and all that, you can rub the kukui nut oil right on there, and it'll actually take away that inflammation. If you get eczema, you can rub the kukui nut oil on your eczema rash, and it will actually take away the redness of that rash. Absolutely amazing. Of course, if you're going to rub it on your skin, stay away from open flames. Very flammable. The Hawaiians would also use them as candles and fishing torches. You can take the whole nut and burn it. The entire nut with the husk on it will burn for about 15-20 minutes. It's very, very oily. You can literally pick it off the tree and set it on fire. If you take the kernel itself and burn it, the kernel itself will burn for 3 to 5 minutes. Very delicious too. You want to eat it roasted. When you eat it raw is when you run the risk of getting the poison again. A very powerful one. We're going to see if we can't show you guys the lizard down here. You can see why it's called Kuaola. And from when you're a little bit further away, you can actually see the whole lizard. It's actually pretty amazing. There's a peninsula out there that looks like a turtle. There's one called Olomana that looks like a face pointed up in the sky. Also has the story to match. And the Kuaola Ridge actually looks like there's a lizard there missing his tail, laying on his belly. Pretty amazing. The Saddle Ridge is where we're actually sitting at the head of the lizard. But the perspective gets kind of weird the closer you are to it. The further away you see it, if you were across the bay looking at it, you can see the whole lizard. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. The Hawaiians don't tell the stories. We have a beautiful statue here of Kuaola, the Hawaiian god of war. This is a part of our stream restoration efforts. This is where one of the cold springs here on property actually runs down the face of the mountain. And we are trying to restore it by replanting native plants, replanting non-invasive Hawaiian plants, and making sure, as best as possible, we return the land to its proper working order. You can see sugar cane growing up there. That looks like the tall purple grass. Sugar cane is actually the second largest grass in the world. The first largest grass in the world is bamboo. eventually it crossed. Another beautiful view of the bay for you guys. And right here in front of us, you can see the Moli'i fish pond right there, guys. Still a working order. If any guys going on the Taste of Kuaola tour today, you get right up and close and personal with the fish pond and the garden. You can see the fish inside the water. You'll notice the water is super, super clear. It is a brackish water pond. Half fresh water, half salt water. It makes an ideal place for the breeding. Okay. Now, a long time ago, Pele, the goddess of the volcano, she has a dream. And in this dream, she falls in love with a prince. Now, she wakes up the next morning and she loves this prince so much, she wants to love him in the real world just as much as she loves him in the dream world. So she asked her sister, Ki'iaka Ikapolio Pele, which means the sister, Ki'iaka, the sister who sleeps in Pele's bosom, or the sister who Pele holds in her bosom. And she asked her if she would go and find this prince, Ki'iaka, the favorite sister of Pele. Of course, she accepts the quest for her sister. And she doesn't find anything until she gets to here to Oahu, where she comes across a mo'o. The mo'os were giant lizards. These lizards were charged with being the spirit protectors of the land. And they were very large. They had magical powers. They had smooth skin. They did not breathe fire. And they didn't fly, they swam. So they were not dragons, they were lizards. But this mo'o, Mokoli'i, denies the goddess Hi'iaka access. But Hi'iaka, she is the Hawaiian warrior goddess. She is also the goddess of the ocean, the goddess of the snow. So she does not take the word no too lightly. So Mokoli'i tells her, the only way you get through here is if you go through me. And so she says, all right, bro, let's fight. So they fight for 3 days. And at the end of the third day, Hi'iaka finally slays the great lizard. She picks his body up, she throws him so hard against the volcano that it causes the volcano to erupt. It engulfs him in lava and entombs him there as the Kuaola Ridge that you see above us. And you can see the dragon's neck coming up, the flat spot right up there at the side. And then you can see how it goes up, his spiky back. You can see where his front leg comes down. You can see where his back leg comes down. You'll notice his tail is missing. His tail she cuts off to add insult to injury, because this is a very big sign of disrespect to the mo'os. She cuts off his tail and she throws it into the water. And the tail curls into itself and becomes Mokoli'i Island, the little island that we see just offshore. And that is the creation story of how this ridge was created. And again, from this vantage point, you got to use your imagination a little bit to see the lizard. But when you're down at Waihole Poi Factory, you look back towards the ridge, you see the whole lizard, his head, his neck, his whole back, and you're like, oh, where's his tail? Is it the water? All right, sit back, relax. We got about 7 minutes to go till we get back to the visitor set. We are still on time. I'll be back with you guys to see our fight. Mahalo. There we can see Mokoli'i Island, the sacred Honumumo Kapu over there on the other side.
Where?
And I want to say mahalo nui loa, my cousins. This officially brings our tour to a close. Thank you very much on behalf of myself and Kuaola Ranch for choosing us for your jungle experience, guys. Hope you guys had a good time on tour. Hope you guys learned a lot. Hope you guys got a little bit more of a sense of the Aina, my cousins, the true Hawaii. Hope you smelled that beautiful air back there in that jungle. Although all that greenery makes a lot of oxygen, guys. It's absolutely wonderful for you. So mahalo nui loa, guys. Thank you very much. If you like the tour, guys, please go to TripAdvisor. Go to Yelp. Let them know that you guys had a great time with your cousin Ariel. Let them know that Ariel's the best tour guide you ever seen. Let them know that Ariel is kind of cute.